can send you the PowerPoint.
And I'm recording it, so you can.
Sure.
We can do that too.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, first of all. Yeah, no doubt. I think I'm Jillian. I'm a mortgage consultant with Valley Bank, and this is Michael. He's your realtor extraordinaire, and he works at Stevens Real Estate, which is right there on the High Street. Main Street, I think.
I'm like, High Street? Main
Yeah.
Street. It's literally
That's a good
main course. Just think of that, and we're right next door to it.
That's a good word for Newports, isn't it?
It is, especially on 420.
That's what we say in England, is we say High Street, not Main Street. Yeah.
Oh, still
Yeah, it's
okay.
funny. Ugh. Anyway, you threw me off. But before we get into like the detail about the presentation, I think we want to talk a little bit about who we are. So we know who we are. It's always nice to know who you potentially want to do business with. Want to go first? Or you want
Sure.
to go first?
So I'm not from here. I've lived in Chicago and Cleveland and Dublin, Ireland, and New York City, and one thing that's consistent is real estate in every city that you go to. So I joined real estate world about 7 years ago when living in New York City. Even though I bought in Chicago, it was one of these where I'm like, there's such great opportunity, even for just in the rental market or in the investment or for your own living. So it was one of these things I'm like, I gotta seek this out because it can help me get to where I need to be. So that's how I started doing rentals in the city, made a lot of money, then moved up here and been doing really well helping people. And I love first-time home buyers because I remember going through it and going, I've got a million questions. Can I ask you this? What about this? How about this? Now, what if I did this and did it? Like, there's so many questions because it's literally like a snowball effect. So I'm like, yep, I love it. So I want to help people get to that because being the first in your family, like you said, to go for this dream is huge. And there's so many questions and it seems insurmountable, but it's not. It's something that we do on a daily basis, but
Step by step.
it's just a step by step.
Day by
And
day.
we're here to help. So
I started in mortgages in 2002 and 2001, and I worked for an online mortgage company back then, which was weird back then because you didn't find a lot of online companies doing big ticket purchases, big ticket items. And that was a 50-state lender, which meant we lent everywhere. I worked with, did I work with you? No, I worked with you in the next job, didn't I? The thing I loved about that job was we sat at a desk and we took calls from people all around the country. And what that taught us was a real adeptness at speaking to people from different financial backgrounds, looking for different types of properties, different levels of knowledge about real estate. And so I really learned how to switch on a dime to talk to the next person who was on the phone. So that was really helpful. Then I worked for Wells Fargo, big company, 17 years. And then last year I started at Valley, which is kind of a mid-sized bank. We're based in New Jersey, but we have banks in New York and New Jersey and Florida. Vince is my manager. And I like a mid-sized bank. It's not too big to be too big. And it's not too small where you don't have enough choices. It's a good middle ground. So,
what's the difference between a bank and a mortgage company?
Well, that's a good question. So a bank lends directly. A mortgage broker is a company that uses a few different mortgage bank choices. So while a bank might have a lot of different mortgage choices, a broker works with different companies who have those different mortgage choices. So that's the difference. They're sort of a mediator between the buyer and the bank, I would say. Good question.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is what we're going to talk about today. So this is me and Mikey. Yay.
Mikey, nobody calls me that.
I
I had one person call me that.
my brother's name is Michael, and I call him.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's so
he's
funny.
the next in line to me, and I call him Mikey all the time. So sorry about that. I won't do that again. I promise.
Never again.
So, all right. So this is what we wanted to cover today in today's workshop. First of all, am I ready for home ownership? That can be, a couple of different avenues of approach there. That could be financially or emotionally, right? Because there's or even like, where am I in my life? Am I hanging around or am I going to move away? Why it makes sense to partner with a real estate agent who will help me with my house hunt. Michael's going to cover that. What is a mortgage pre-approval and why do I need one? And also, what are the 4 C's of credit for getting a mortgage? So that's what we look at when we're qualifying you for a loan to go shopping, and then what we actually want to see from you when you found your house. We're going to want to see proof of your bank statements and your pay stubs, all that good stuff. So we're going to get into that. And then once we're pre-approved, so once we've worked together and talked about your financial situation, what do we then do? It goes back to my geek Michael. And then after all of this, after we've prepped you all for telling you what's going to happen when you're shopping for a home, what if you then decide to wait? That's cool. Not everybody's on that I got to get on the bus right now journey. And then at the end, we want to address your questions and your comments and all of that good stuff. And, specifically, I would love to know what surprises you about what we've told you as well. So that would be great to hear from you. So we've got a couple of pros and cons here. We don't call them cons because I don't think there's any cons to buying real estate. We call them considers instead. And this is sort of a financial overview, right? So obviously the pros are you own it, big American dream, you own your home. I know that I found, and I don't know if you can speak the same, but owning a home is a very sort of you feel like there's a rootedness to it, there's a stability and a groundedness, whereas a renting a home I feel is a little bit more of a transient feeling. I don't know. Would you feel the same way?
I do.
So there's a stability there, and besides the fact that you own it, it's starting to create your familial wealth, which sounds like you're already starting on that path already with your 401k. And you're building some equity and you're going to benefit from the appreciation. So do you know what appreciation is?
So, as the market changes over the years, what is that when the price of the equity in the house fluctuates throughout the years? And so if it was to go up in appreciation, then I would gain those funds. If it down, then I would lose. Yeah,
well, the appreciation is it's all of that, but in summary, it's the increase in value of the home. And we're going to talk about that in a little while, but you can get appreciation on your home by the market forces, by doing work on your home, by paying down the loan. And we'll go into that a little bit later. Sellable and willable. So this is something, I can choose to sell it if I want, or if I move to another house, I can keep it. And willable means you can will it to somebody within your family. If you end up having a family, or if you don't have a family, you can will it to your siblings, or you can pass it on. It's part of your family, your familial wealth, your generational wealth. And your tax benefits.
Those are good.
Good at this time of year because we are at tax time.
Those are really good.
You can write off your mortgage interest, you can write off your property taxes, and when you sell a home, there are tax benefits too. So, and then the things to consider, the things that might sort of stop people in their tracks, I suppose. You need a budget, right? You need to, when you own a home, you sort of have to prepare, for the fact that you're going to have to make that payment every month. You need upfront costs, including a down payment, and this is a big one. You can't easily walk away. So this is going to speak to the next slide, where you are in your life, emotionally and work-wise. I can't just give my landlord a 30-day notice and walk the hell out of there. You might be able to sell a home in this market in 30 days, but
yeah.
But it's a little bit more difficult to walk away. And your additional cost of ownership, your property taxes and your insurance and repairs and upkeep. And I heard something where they say that if you own a home, or when you own a home, you should spend at least 1% of the value of your home
Per year?
doing renovations every year, or upkeep.
Okay.
You think that's fair? So a $400,000 home, that would be a $4,000 budget a year to do work. Is that a lot?
No, not really.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I know I don't do that, but do you do?
It's $350 a month, so it's not.
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
Just think of paint alone. If you hire a painter, that's your $4,000 right there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep, so that's the repairs and upkeep. And then, so that's sort of the more financial side here. And then,
I've never considered the can't easily walk away part.
Yeah.
You don't think about it. You think of home ownership. You're like, this is an investment. It's going to be at least 5-7 years, right? But 1 to 2 years, I see that happening.
Yeah, you can't easily. Think about Leanna and John.
Yeah.
All right. And so this is sort of more an emotional, where am I in my life type conversation you can have with yourself when you're thinking about buying a home. are you ready to put down roots? So you're flying around the country at the moment doing your 21-year-old stuff, 22-year-old soon. And, but you might, when you come back, you might start to think, you know what, it might be a good time for me, I might be interested in getting an investment property or, you know, whatever your choices are. So that's an important question. And what's my overall financial situation? So i.e., am I going to be in a place where, you know, I have a stable income? Do I have a lot of debt to pay? Do I have a lot of student loan to get rid of? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. What assets do you have available for home buying? So we talked about that a little bit on the last slide, but that's another thing we're going to look at when we qualify you for a mortgage is, do you have enough money? And what other expenses do you have? I don't know. I have a son-in-law who's, or a son rather, who's getting married, or a stepson who's getting married. They're really interested in buying a home at the moment. They're in their late 20s, but they have a wedding coming up in a couple of months. So they're putting it on hold because they don't feel like they can, you know, do something right now. So that's a big expense, right?
Well, that plays into budgeting as well, you know, because you're gonna, you know, listen, my wife and I had a conversation this morning, my son's coming out from Brooklyn about, you know, going out to dinner. Well, it's one thing if it's just the two of us, but if it's him and then his two sisters and one of his boyfriends, all of a sudden 5 turns into 6 and
it's a lot of money.
that makes
100 turns into 500.
exactly. So it plays into, you know, it plays into your budgeting and you know, where does your lifestyle fit into your budget in that plan?
And then also, I guess they have the additional income of another person. Being me, it's just like myself, now an additional partner also. So
All that plays into it.
Man, I wish I had been 21 and I had thought about this stuff back then. I have to give you kudos.
Absolutely. That's what I think. I'm like, 21? Holy shit.
I think what you're doing is amazing. It's really cool.
like,
so we're all jealous of you, basically.
I'm looking to get to where you are.
So, whoops, next slide is, with all of that being said, we're going to talk about how your realtor is going to help you. So when you've decided that it's ready to get going, Michael's going to talk to you a little bit about what he does and the benefits of using a real estate agent.
So the number one thing as I have on top is local. Like you want to go as hyper local as you can to whatever market that you're looking in. So you would want to find a resource like me in a local market, wherever you buy. If you go buy in California, you buy in Utah, you buy somewhere, you want to go to that area and go to that local expert because they're going to have those resources that you need. Whereas like I'll introduce you to a Jillian to say, hey, let's get you pre-approved. And then I'm going to introduce you to local lenders, attorneys, inspectors, appraisers. Like using a local lender is going to force them to use a local appraiser. And that's somebody who's going to come out and assess the house saying, yep, we're willing to give you the loan for X amount. Whereas some of these larger corporate banks like Wells Fargo, Chase, and the like, you'd be surprised that some of these appraisers show up from like the city and they don't know what a septic system is versus a sewer. So it can kind of really muddy the waters. And that happened to me last year in the height of COVID. I was like, what do you mean you don't know what a septic is?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
The appraiser didn't know?
He had no idea. He came from Manhattan. He had no idea.
Oh
He
my
goes, what do you mean
goodness.
drilled well?
That's
I'm like,
crazy.
there's no water just running through here. It's like it's drilled in the ground and we get it that way. So saying local is going to get you to where you need to be a lot faster and a lot sooner. Now, one example was a local attorney. One of the local guys I use, he picks up the phone for everything. He doesn't believe in the texting or emails and all that other stuff. He does not. He wants to get to the answer ASAP.
Is that Kevin Barry?
Yes, but like when people they hide behind their computer. Like, oh, hey, we had a question about this inspection result. He's like, let's talk about it. Let's hammer this out right now because time is of the essence. Everything is crucial. Like we lost days on market because somebody decided not to call me back but went and sent an email to an attorney. Great, we just lost 3 days. So it's just a matter of like keeping the momentum going because typically from the process from once you pick a home and you get an accepted offer to by the time you close is about 60 days. But a lot can happen that time. One of the things we're experiencing now is you get the accepted offer, and you could go doing inspections, and in that time period, you're still not under contract, so anybody can come in and essentially knock you out of place. And it's happening more and more now because this market is so tight because the inventory is so low, right? So
I don't feel like that used to happen around here, did it?
no, but
I feel
now
like
it's
that's
happening
more
more and
Yeah,
more. Like
yeah,
literally
yeah,
just this past week, I think our team, there was probably 5 or 6 that had that happen. And you're like, come on, we just spent $1,200 on inspections.
So you mean somebody made an offer,
Yep.
they got the inspection done.
They got
and-
accepted offer, got inspections done.
And before they signed the contract, somebody else came in to swoop the house
Right.
away.
And it could be a matter of like $1,000, but the seller's looking at it that more
Yeah.
money. Yeah. And so we're trying to drive our attorneys like, please be ready for the contracts ASAP, and then we can figure everything else out afterwards. Like inspection items can go in and do addendum on the contract. Like, don't let that hold us up. Let's keep moving.
Right.
So one of the things that I do is we set you up in a 24-hour search, so you can always go on to your website that we create for you, where you can see all the homes that you did look at, you did like, you didn't like. We can always change your, what search things you're looking for. If you want to say, oh, I only want New Paltz, and now you're like, I want all of the Hudson Valley. We can very easily change things around. But we're here to be your ultimate resource, right? We're going to guide you and give you as many other resources in terms of, like attorneys and lenders and the like, and then we're going to provide you with fair and ethical treatment throughout the whole thing. It's like, I can't steer you in any way. I'm like, oh, he's 22, he needs a condo. No, like if he wants a single family home, he's gonna get a single family home. But you'd be surprised at some of the mentality of some where they're like, no, I'm gonna pigeonhole you into what I think you should be, when you're the one you're paying for it ultimately at the end. One of the things that we had just recently changed is this buyer agency representation in NAR ruling. Are you familiar with any of that, or did you hear anything about this? So for the longest time on the MLS, our broker's compensation is listed. So it'd say, the buyer's agent's going to get 2%, 2.5%, 1.75, or now it's going to start in July, it's going to say 0, which doesn't mean that we're not getting compensated. It means that they can no longer put the compensation online. And that all became a thing because somebody was saying it was price fixing, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And NAR, National Association of Realtors, basically rolled over with the Department of Justice saying, great, we'll remove that compensation from the MLS public information, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. So now we have to call every listing saying, what's the compensation? So we have it where starting July 1st, our typical compensation is 3% of the sales price, right? So sometimes this seller might be offering 2.5, this one might offering be 2, and this one might offer 1.25. Well, it's gonna be up to you to have that difference up to 3%. And we're gonna need that in signed writing contract form, because starting in July, we won't even be able to see a house without having it. So all of this is all new, and then there's other like property condition disclosure changes that have happened with sellers, whereas beforehand you didn't have to say like, hey, my stove is 12 years old, it's gonna go on the fritz and like the day I close, right? Or my boiler is 25 years old, that's usually been replaced 5 years ago. We're not gonna say anything. So we say, hey, here's $500, look the other way. But now there was a law that just changed in March saying, hey, Mr. Seller, you have to disclose everything that you know about your property, or say unknown is what most of them are doing. But that document is now legally binding for at least 7 years after you close. So Kevin.
Wow, I didn't know it was 7 years.
Yeah, Kevin has this case, this was about a year ago. So
Did you know that?
Actually, we'll talk about it. I'm actually trying to develop a lunch and learn around this, specifically around that, because this is the biggest change. To me, it's a win for the buyers, but I think it puts a little, again, personal perception, a little unfair burden on a seller, because I've looked at the form, and I've owned my house now for 20-something years. I don't even know how to fill that.
Right.
Yeah, I
And-
can understand.
right.
Because there's certain things that I know, there's certain things I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah, like some of the basic questions, like who's your electricity provider? Okay, great, Central Hudson. I can answer that, and fine. 7 years from now, that was an honest answer. But when it comes to like 23-year-old boiler, fun shit. No, I don't know. So there's two major things that are happening in the real estate world that isn't being discussed, and the buyer's representation is one, and then the property condition disclosure is another one. But like Jersey, they have it. So like anytime you go see a house, you can get that information up front of time. Here,
Really? They have it in Jersey?
Nobody really knew what it looked like, because forever, every attorney just said, listen, give them the $500 credit, don't worry about signing it, and it's fine.
Right.
I've sold a house before, and I did too, because, okay, that's just what you do. Now, you have to fill it out, which I think is good for the buyer to understand
What they're gonna get
what they're buying. But again, we need to make sure that sellers are protected as well to know how to, what the pitfalls are, correctly, fill that form out, so that all parties are protected. But again, you have more of a clearer understanding of the property you're buying.
Right.
What you're going into, so there's no animosity out there.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I mean,
That's not always.
There's always a buyer
Yeah.
beware kind of
Yes.
overtone in any kind of purchase, but in this type of investment, I think it's best that all parties really, I mean, and part of it is, well, listen, you've already had a home inspection, but a home inspection only goes so far, so.
Right.
Not to get off, I mean.
No, but so we always say
We're
like
going to get there in a minute.
yeah, an inspection literally is like what the house is that day.
Right.
Like there's so many seasonable variables that go into it, but like this is a scope of your house for today. And it's a great learning tool. You'll get like an 85-page report saying, hey, here's the condition of everything that you can go and work with afterwards. But that's only as good as your inspector is. So like for example, my first inspector that I hired for my place in Highland, he was not a very reputable inspector, but he was referred from a friend of mine. And literally within 10 minutes, he's like, oh, that's $10,000, that's $50,000. I'm like, this house is being sold as is, dude.
Right.
He's like, okay, but you have all this opportunity for negotiation. I'm like, no, we don't. Like, I need to know what's the fix.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I fired him on the spot and then hired another local one that I heard of. And
I won't
yeah,
even ask you
yeah,
the name of
no.
that.
So when I see that name, I was like, nope, we are not using that person. So, yes,
That's very funny.
a very fortunate mistake.
All right. So that's what happens at the beginning, and that's what Michael can help you with. But we're going to get into a little bit more of what Michael does later, after you've been pre-qualified for a mortgage. So let's see. We're going to talk about what lenders look at. But first of all, we're going to look at what a mortgage is, right? So when you buy a home, most people need some help with the money. Most people don't have $400,000 handy to buy a $400,000 home, although I would say that these days in our marketplace, there are a lot more cash buyers.
Yes.
I think the statistic was last year in the United States, 36% of people who bought homes did so with cash.
Oof.
Yeah, 36%. So, which kind of makes me feel a little irrelevant, but anyway. So a mortgage is a vehicle, it's a debt by which you can purchase a home, right? So the house that you're buying is the collateral for the bank. So we don't just say, hey, this guy's purchasing a home, we're going to throw him $300,000 because he needs it. We need something in exchange for that money, and your house is what we take in exchange. It's our collateral for the loan. So what that means is when you buy a home, you're recorded with the county that you're the legal owner, and on that legal document will be our name. So we will always show as a lien on your home until you actually pay the home off by selling it or you finish with the mortgage. And then our name comes off the home because we no longer need that house as a collateral. So that's what the mortgage is. It's a debt against your house. You can make monthly or bi-weekly payments. The bi-weekly came into fashion a few years ago where a lot more people were getting paid on a bi-weekly basis. Money comes in from your job, money can go out to your mortgage, so that was the theory behind the bi-weekly. At the beginning, most of your loan payment goes to the bank in interest. And that's because, so if you think about a 30-year loan, which is what most people get, a 30-year loan is 360 payments, which sounds awful, but it's 330 years multiplied by 12. So every month, your mortgage payment is going to stay the same through that 30 years if you keep the mortgage for that long. But at the beginning, your monthly payment is going to be very heavily weighted towards interest and just a little bit towards paying your loan down. And then every month, a little bit more goes towards interest, and a little bit more goes towards you paying your loan down, and a little bit less goes towards interest. That's called amortization. But when you own a home for the first few years, most of the money you're throwing at the bank is interest, which kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. But it's the way it is, right? So down payment is required to obtain the loan. As a first-time home buyer, there's usually a few different ideas about that. You can get in sometimes with very little money down, maybe 0%, depending on what product you're getting. 3% is a big one, 5%. and the bank that can help you get pre-qualified or pre-approved for a mortgage. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, what we need to see from you and about you to get you qualified. So, any questions about what is a mortgage?
No.
Okay.
Is there penalties for prepaying your mortgage?
Most of the time, no. That was big in the early 2000s when there were a lot more sort of predatory lenders out there. You would get a penalty for paying early, right? That's kind of gone away.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to say it's illegal. There's a lot of cases where that is not legal. There's certain home equities and certain things. If a lender has paid the closing costs, there's a certain period of time you have to keep it open.
Oh, right, that makes sense.
Have to repay part of the
Right.
closing costs, but there's no penalty for prepaying.
Okay.
The only thing that you would not get back is if you, and this is kind of going down a little rabbit hole, but if in your pricing, if you were to pay points to get a different rate, and then you paid off early, you would not get any of the portion that you paid to get that rate back. But that's,
Okay.
never usually happens. Usually if you have a windfall to pay off your mortgage, you don't
Yeah.
worry about the limit.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly. At that point, I'm like,
If you win the lottery
what I'm
the day
waiting for.
after you
Yeah.
close and pay off the mortgage, who cares?
I was going to ask actually for the bi-weekly and the monthly. So when you initially set up your mortgage, would you commit to either monthly or bi-weekly, or
Yeah.
could you change throughout the
You
mortgage
commit to
period?
it, what you want to do at the
Commit,
beginning.
So then you would have to refinance if, like, say you were to lose your job or get another job that.
I don't think you would have to refinance. You probably could pitch the bank to change it, couldn't you?
Yeah, you'd have to ask for, it would have to be some type of workout on that, because when you do a bi-weekly, you've set it in the kind of note on how that works.
How that will go over 30 years.
Yeah. Now, the interesting about, when we talk about amortization, you can get a regular monthly 30-year mortgage, but you can still prepay.
Okay.
Right.
And we can show you situations where, and rule of thumb, a 30-year mortgage, if you made in essence what is one extra principal and interest payment a year, you drop it to a 23. So there's ways to manipulate.
Right.
And we talk about that in strategy, where you are in your life, where your income profile is going. Some people want to do 15 and they're in a big rush. The good news is you can take 30-year money and tell the bank you want to pay back in 15.
Yeah.
You just can't take 15 and then say,
Okay.
hey, I'd rather pay back in 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
I think one of the things, before we get into what is important about what we look at when we 4 C's of credit for getting a mortgage, these are the things that we're looking at when it comes to your financial world. I think the thing that's important to remember as well is a lot of times your expectation of what you feel comfortable paying might be completely different from what a bank will offer to you. And what I mean by that is you might say, well, I'm making this amount a month and I feel comfortable making this payment, and I might look at your income and say, but actually you qualify for a lot more. You could get a lot more house. So at the end of the day, where we like to start, or at least where I like to start, is to talk to my clients about what are you comfortable paying every month. I think that's really the crux of it for most people, because we all work within a budget, whether it's kind of a sort of a budget we keep in our head or if we're doing an Excel spreadsheet. And we all have a comfort level, like, can I handle $2,500 a month? That's probably okay, but can I handle that? I don't really want to do that. That kind of conversation we have with ourselves. I think that's a really important part of the conversation when you're talking to a mortgage person. And actually it's funny because I do ask a lot of my clients that at the beginning, and they might say, I've never even thought of that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really curious. You're going to want to buy a house, but you haven't thought about what is a comfort level for you as far as monthly payment is concerned. So while we're looking at your financial world, this is definitely a back and forth conversation. It's not me telling you or you what you can and should do. It's what you want to do, and then we have a conversation about how we can get to your goal.
Yeah.
So the 4 C's of credit, the first and most, well, I wouldn't say the most important one. Not really, no. I mean, they're all important.
Well, there's really 3 things that drive the bus, but
The credit is important for a couple of reasons. One is the credit score. So that's your FICO score. And a credit report is basically a history of how competent you are, responsible you are in paying your bills. Do you have a lot of debt out there? Do you have an average amount of debt out there? Have you had your debt for a long time? Do you pay your debt on time? Do you have a high balance and you've used most of that money, or a high availability of money and you've used most of that on your credit card? Let's see. So the credit agencies, there are 3 of them, they score your behavior, and the bank will look at your credit report to see. Now imagine if you were the lender and someone came to you and said, you know what, I really would like to borrow some money from you. Can I borrow 200,000? And you'd say, yeah, you know, I got that for you, but I really need to see a history of if you're responsible with your debt. That's what we're doing when we look at a credit report. We want to know that when we lend that person that money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're going to pay us back, right? So that's important. And the other thing we look at, so that all of your behavior results in a FICO score, which is your credit score. And there are particular mortgage programs where you need a certain amount of credit to qualify. So most of the time that's a 620 or a 660 FICO score. The lower your credit score, generally the higher the interest rate that you'll pay. And the other part that we look at on your credit report is what your debt load is. So do you have a car loan? Do you have student loans? How quickly are you going to be finished with that car loan? Do you have another mortgage? Are there any things on your credit that somebody else is paying that you're not obligated to pay? And the reason that we look at that is because when we're going to qualify you for a loan, we're going to look at how your income compares with your debt, and the debt is what's listed in your credit report plus the cost of the new home. So that's why that's important. Can you think of anything else we look at with credit?
I don't see any, there really isn't much tax information, or certain things have been taken off, but it's really just the score and the longevity, and number of trade lines is big too, because you could have a high score with one trade line, but they want to see what they consider depth of credit.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say like building like over a period of time.
Yeah, and let's face it, it's really about, you're exactly right, it's time period, 12 month, 24 month. You'll notice, and the great thing about credit is very dynamic. It's meant to change, because every month, every day, every week, your financial position changes. You pay, you get new credit, you buy, you sell.
Yeah.
So the good news about that is it's easy to raise just by having good habits,
Yeah.
not overextending. But yes, those time frames are big, 12 months, 24 months. Once you clear those with you see like a new credit card.
Yes.
Once you hit 12 months, you'll get a bump. Once you hit 20 months, 24, you'll get a bump. You'll get little increments every other month, but once you hit those thresholds,
Yeah.
and you don't use over, say, 30%.
Right.
Of the
That's key.
That's another one. So the good news is, listen, the credit reports, they need information in order for that mathematical model to come up with a number.
Yeah.
So it's got to have info in there. They don't want too much, and they don't want it to be bad.
Right.
So
I think that,
it's as simple as we can get.
and that sometimes, we might talk to somebody who has compromised credit, and the conversation then becomes, if you do this, this, and this, get rid of that, maybe pay a bit off here, your credit score can improve possibly more quickly than it might normally if you were doing that just naturally.
Yeah.
So, it's always good to sort of have an analysis as far as your credit is concerned as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, not too often, but you really need to,
Does that impact your score if you do that through like certain?
There are companies, I think annualcreditreport.com is a company that you can look up and get a credit score without it dinging you're entitled to have a credit score from each bureau once a year. Without that dinging your score. I'm not a big believer in the credit score dings. I think if you're shopping for a lot of credit at one time, that certainly happens. But I don't think if you're looking at a mortgage or maybe you're buying a car is a bad example, but getting one credit check doesn't necessarily bring your score down by 30 points.
And generally, in the grand scheme of things, remember, the credit agencies understand that if you're looking for a home, we have to see your credit. Now, what happens is when, if, I don't know if Sears is still around, Macy's,
Yes.
or Amazon, if,
Nope, they're gone.
when credit card companies pull your credit, the credit bureaus, the philosophy is, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's something wrong with cash flow. They need credit to pay their monthly bills. That's why you kind of you'll get a ding as your, and they're called inquiries. So when you have those type of inquiries, your credit score will take a ding. You have a certain amount of time frame when you're searching for homes. When a bank, for mortgage purposes, pulls your credit, the credit agencies know there's no other way for us to determine if you can afford without doing it. So you may have a couple of point hit. In the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. But as long as you do it within, say, like, I think it's a 14-day or 21-day period.
14.
Yeah, they just don't want you don't want to do it over a 4 or 5 month period. Do your research, have somebody pull your credit, review, because then you can see, there's times where we would see things, hey, you went to the hospital emergency room, 4 years ago, and there was a $50 copay that didn't,
Yeah. Sometimes things show up on people's credit report they don't even know.
Collection, you're like, what? Well,
Right.
guess what? The collection agency for $50 is not going to spend any money to try to call you.
No.
They're going to wait until you pull your credit.
Yeah, and they're like, haha. Yeah.
So those are the type of things that we try to uncover just to make sure you know your position before you really start.
Yeah.
So that's
When you
credit.
first brought up credit, just remind me,
Yeah.
freshman year of college,
Oh, go.
went to school in Chicago, and in like the student forum as you walk in, there was all these companies saying, hey, Chase, I'll give you $50 cash to sign up for a credit card. And people were doing it left and right. But I'm like, we're signing up for all this credit, right? Opening up lines of credit that are potentially going to damage your credit report.
That's terrible.
It was the worst. I'm like, how did they get away with that? I'm like, I remember walking away with like $200.
First piece of mail,
Yeah.
first piece of mail I got when I graduated college, I will tell you how many years ago, was from American Express, and I wore that thing out. I think they sent a hitman after me.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, it has drastically changed since then, but yeah, they'll
Oh, yeah.
see.
I was like, so just be
That's
careful.
how I got mine.
Yeah.
The Discover student card I got in the mail, and so then I signed up for that one, but I only use it for gas or like expenses that I'm
And you
using.
get,
Yeah.
because you're building history, you're building
Yeah.
positive history, which
Yeah.
is terrific.
Yeah.
And I heard something about maintaining a certain utilization rate or something where I pay off 70% of whatever my
Yes.
my, and then I leave a little bit so that I'm
I mean, on a credit card, you can pay it all off. I wouldn't leave any on there to pay interest.
Right.
But it's when you use over 30%. So
Okay.
you could use it and pay it off to zero. That's fine. Don't pay any interest just to keep a balance.
Okay.
Right.
Because I heard
It's when you keep that balance over 30. It's true. When you keep the balance over 30%, you get hurt. Not so much when you pay it off to zero.
Okay, because I think it's like $1,500 is the amount allotted, and I only keep maybe $35.
Ah, that's,
Oh, yeah.
that's
You're great.
fine.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
You'll-
That's fine.
But if you were going to keep 300,
Then
just to
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
do that.
don't.
Because I was hearing if I pay it off in whole, then I'm not showing the bank that I know how to use
That's-
credit properly. and
That's decently true.
Yeah.
That's decently
it is,
true.
but at that level, you're not going to see a big. At this point, every month you click off a positive history is going to be more than your balance manipulation.
Right.
Okay.
If you
Alright.
will.
Yeah, and I'm working with little numbers here, so it's
Yeah, but no, but listen.
Yeah,
But this is how it builds. This is
Yeah.
exactly. This is the
Your
compound
thought
effect. Is
process-
so good.
Think about this.
Yeah.
Your thought process when the numbers are bigger is exactly where you
Yeah,
need
it's
to be.
exactly the same.
Exactly,
Well done.
Exactly that.
For you. So the next part is capacity, and this is basically about your income. And there's a lot of stuff we can talk about when it comes to income, history of employment, et cetera, et cetera. But in theory, what we're looking at here is we want to make sure that the money that you make is enough to support your mortgage payment, and then all of the rest of the debt that we've already seen on your credit report in number 1, right? So a couple of important points here. So if you're a salaried person, we're going to look at your salary. If you get a bonus and commission, we need to look back a couple of years to show a rhythm of receipt. one of the big things about employment is if you are salaried or hourly, if you're planning on purchasing a home, don't switch to self-employment, because for a self-employed person, we need to see 2 years of tax returns. And so if you're now talking about your job with Gateway, and you go to California and you come back and you decide you're going to start your own business in September, and then you call me in December and say, I'm thinking about buying a house now. I say, I'm really sorry, but we're going to need to see 2 years of tax returns for the self-employed job that you now have. So that's a big, sometimes it doesn't happen a lot, but when I get a person like that on the phone, you can practically hear their stomach fall to the ground, on the other end of the phone, because they didn't realize. For us, it's like elementary, but people just don't know, because it's not stuff you think about until you're ready to buy a house.
Yeah. But and then what will happen is we'll ask for W-2s and they'll send it, and one of them is 1099. That's not a W-2. Oh yeah, well
I forgot to tell you.
It's in the same business they've been in forever, but now.
Well, so many people become consultants. Like, yep, I left that and became a consultant, 1099. You're like, oh yeah, great. Yeah.
Consistent income,
Well,
because
because the lender does not know what write-offs you're going to have.
Right.
Oh, that's
how you're going to
sustain.
What expenses you have, all those things you need to show a history of that, so they have an understanding of what your real income is.
Plus, there's also, if somebody's starting a business, there's sort of some questions there about the potential success or lack thereof of that business, right? So we really need to understand that business is on its way, because so many, self-employed companies fail, unfortunately. But anyway, one cool thing about income, if you're just recently out of college, let's say you studied social work in college and you become a social worker. Usually what we want to see is 2 years of history in that job. But if you go into a job as a social worker and you've had school history behind you, and you can show the transcripts for your lessons that pertain to the job you now got, you don't need 2 years of history. You can jump in 6 months if you've got a salaried position as a social worker, and you can use your transcripts as your history behind you. And I think that's very useful information. I don't know that a lot of people are necessarily ready to jump in and buy a home when they get out of school.
No.
But if you want to, you might be. If you want to, you can.
Right.
So something, because I did some landscaping for a broker in my area, and I got to pick her brain a little bit. And she had mentioned the 2 years of job experience within the same fields. And so that's where it got me, because at first I was thinking, all right, like I worked at Walmart 6 months, then I did some landscaping, and then I'm in this field now, like I'll just add these together. And she's like, nope, can't do that.
No.
Gotta be within the same field. And so then I was wondering, like, as my job is kind of progressing and changing, right now I'm still working in mental health facility. That would be within the general scope of practice, going from mental health, residential counselor to social work.
Yeah, that's all that.
If I decide to go into nursing, maybe, and
You can,
it would still be okay.
Yeah.
It's the same number.
It just wouldn't be like if you did that and then you started to drive a bus, or or you opened a restaurant.
Yes.
But you're going along the same path with what you're doing. So.
And so the college credit, is that only, so I'm in my associates for human services right now, and I'm finishing in the spring. That's 2 years of college. So would that be applicable for the 2 years of credit? Okay.
Yeah, they don't require, a 4-year degree. It just, they want to show that it's almost like it's almost the same as like a vocational school. You were going through, to be a carpenter, and then you started being, that's your training for your career.
Right.
Okay.
So that counts towards your experience and pathway.
Yeah, it's showing that you're stable in your.
That's incredible to hear. Actually, I had no idea that this was
So that's your big takeaway.
Well, hopefully there's more.
Yes, but wait.
But wait.
But wait.
So the other 2 C's, the next one that we look at when we're pre-approving you, and of course, so pre-approval is before you found the property, and then of course when you actually found the property and you're going for the actual loan, we're going to look at how much cash you have. right? We want to know that you've got enough money for your down payment and your closing costs. So we've got down payment at closing, which is a percentage of your price, and your closing costs, 2 big piles of money. And what's good about upfront money is that it doesn't all have to be yours. Doesn't mean you go and rob a bank, but it means that you can, if somebody in your family is willing to gift you some money, you can get a gift from that person to help you. If you have started a retirement account and you've put some money aside, you can draw a little money from your retirement account to help. So it doesn't all have to be sort of like these traditional checking and savings. You know, you can get grants if you're a first-time home buyer. You can get grants to help you with your down payment as well. So lots of different ways to get cash, right?
Yeah.
How would the grant process be? Because I just got a grant for my internship so that like it could be paid over the summer. But what would like the grant process be like to get home?
So the grant's going to depend on which county you're in, first of all, right? Really?
Yeah, first of all, there's a number of different grants.
Right.
One of them, New York State has a Sunny Mae, or State of New York Mortgage Agency. They have their own loan program, and they'll do 97% financing, but they will grant you. They'll actually have a down payment assistance loan for the other 3%. So in essence, it's 100% financing. Now, there's other grants that one that we support is the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York has a first time. It's called the Homebuyer Dream. It's up to $20,000. Now, a lot of these, they're income-driven programs. So
Yeah,
you
so
can't make a certain
in theory, if you
amount of
make too much income, you can't get the grant.
Right.
But there's some.
Where's there?
But some of that is changing because they realize that some of the price of homes that the income you have to make to get to the price of to afford a house at this point,
Yeah.
some of that, it's exceeded that 80% median area
Right.
income limit. So like Federal Home Loan Bank of New York just came out with a grant that is eligible for people who make, because generally the first one is 80% or below of the area median. Now it goes from 80% to 120%. So they've added a separate grant for people who make more money. So they're, one being, generally they're mostly income driven. Some are driven by geography. So if you buy an area in a low to moderate income tract, there's grants that are available in those areas as well. So there's a number of different things.
Yeah.
We source them, we try to work with housing agencies to find out what they have. Some in Dutchess County here in Ulster, a lot in Westchester. Just depends on where we look at where someone is looking to buy and what's available in that area and then their income and try to match them up to a grant program.
I was gonna say that's probably one of the many benefits of working with people in the area, like local.
Totally.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
it
right.
really
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
there's some that not all lenders participate in all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Some have others, but some are just in that county. It's not up to the lender, it's up to where the house is, so they can support that as well.
Yeah.
Some of them are true grants, some of them are second liens that are forgivable over time. So that's, again, we won't get down that rabbit hole, but there's funds available.
Right.
And as Julie mentioned earlier, gift funds are really, really common.
Yeah, it's happening a lot at the moment, I think, because I'm seeing a lot of gift money coming in a lot of co-signers as well. Because it's a lot of money to save up when you're trying to get your foot on the ladder of your first house. If you can get some kind of financial assistance from your family, a couple of thousand, whatever, it'll help you get there more quickly.
That's what helped me in college right now. I've been doing personal loans with my father so that I keep my debt clear.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So I have no car loans or like student loans or anything.
Wow.
Until I go into my bachelor's, then I'll probably.
Wow.
have to take some loan, but-
You're a smart young man,
Yeah.
that's for sure. So the fourth C is once you've found the home, that's the collateral. So the collateral for the bank, remember, is the property. We're going to look at the condition of the home. Michael is going to suggest an inspector to go and look at the home. And once you've started the mortgage, we're going to send an appraiser to the home because we want to make sure that what you're paying for the home is what it's actually worth. An appraiser is going to compare your home to similar properties that have sold in the area, and they're going to say, well, you know what, we don't think it's worth the $350 he's paying. We think it might be worth only $325, or we think it might be worth $375. But ideally, the appraiser is going to value the home at least the price that you're paying. Hopefully they'll think it's worth more than you're paying, and then you've got a really good deal because you work with Michael and he helped you negotiate one.
Exactly. And during the height of COVID, that was really important because there was a lot of these appraisers going in and they were just looking at like similar homes that sold for X price. But because of COVID, that market price was no longer here. It's now here. So we would have to fight these different appraisers saying, listen,
Yes.
I've got 10 people who are willing to spend $100,000 more than this list price. So clearly there's something going on. So it's just a matter of like, we got to work together to make sure that it comes out right. Cause
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that goes back to the local piece too.
Yeah.
Is that
That's true.
having that familiarity, and not that you're having any conversations you shouldn't have, but you know, being able to have that conversation, so okay, here's what the market is bearing, and those local appraisers understand what's happening, because appraisers have it tough too, and you know, their job really, I had an appraiser tell me this years and years ago, an appraisal's not a look through the windshield.
Right.
It's a look through the rearview mirror. It's
Yeah.
like where we kind of just went by, not where we're going. So they understand that the market is hot, and they'll make assumptions for that, they'll make adjustments for that. And the one thing about this, the appraiser's job is not to tell you how much the house is worth. The appraiser's job is to say, does this house match the contract price? Or at least meet or exceed, or, you know, where does it fall in value of, it was, you know, in relationship to the contract price?
Right.
Because we always get a lot of people say, I don't understand. All these appraisals come back exactly the number.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's there to support the contract and support you as a buyer and there's times where it'll come over. They'll say, hey, wait, you know what?
Mhm.
This is, and unfortunately there's not much now, but you know, in the past, every once in a while you'd see some that were like, hey, you know, you're about 10,000 short, you know, thereabouts. So
Yeah. Oh, there's
that's
some
their-
tough ones.
That's their job. That's what they do.
Yep.
So, once we have you pre-approved,
Then we go shopping.
what are my next steps, Michael? So
Shopping.
basically, once I've approved you for a loan, or we've pre-approved you for a loan, we send you a letter, and we send a letter also to Michael, and the letter's going to outline what you've got approved up to, so what your maximum purchase price is that you can afford and you feel comfortable affording, and what kind of loan amount you can get. And then it's Michael's job to start taking you shopping. Right, Mikey?
Absolutely. Governor. So oftentimes we get people who do the reverse. They're like, hey, I want to start shopping for homes, but they don't know what their budget is. And I'll do a one freebie. Like I'll go out shopping with you for
You do
one
one
day.
freebie? That's
Yep.
funny.
But then I'm like, you have to talk to Jillian because you need to know what you're shopping for, right? Because I know me, I love those $1 million homes, but I can't afford a $1 million home. So why am I looking at them? I should be looking at like the $350,000. Okay, great. So that's why you got to be realistic, right? So many people have like the dreams of like, yes, I want all these things in a bag of chips. Like during the height of COVID was I need 2 acres of land, a lake feature, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's got to be looking at the woods, and I want to spend $250,000. I'm like, yeah, 20 years ago. Next, yeah, exactly. It's not being realistic.
20 years ago.
Yeah, and it's not trying to be rude, but it's trying to be like, we have to manage expectations. Like, because it is a roller coaster. There's a lot of big things going in terms of like, it's, hundreds of thousands of dollars going into a home. You want to make sure it suits you, but I also want to make sure that it works well for you, for your budget, for your needs, for like growing a family, for doing whatever. Like we need to be realistic. So we sit down and we have a whole buyer's consultation, right? Because there's some things to say, hey, this is gonna be my forever home. I'm like, you're 22, this is not gonna be your forever home. You think it might be, but it's gonna be your home for maybe 7 to 10 years, and then life changes, right? Something happens, you decide to move, you get a promotion, you go elsewhere, then that house is no longer that dream, it becomes something else. So then it becomes a vehicle for you to get to your next dream. So that's what we want to do. So we'll go out and we'll go shopping. We're going to stick to the parameters that you want, where you want to be, how much you want to spend. And then we do the whole offer process. So right now the market is really tight because there's such limited inventory. Because of limited inventory, you get all these bidding wars that are currently happening. And we don't know what they turn out to be in terms of what the final price is, but we have to manage your expectations, what you're financially capable, able to do, and then we consider what the offer is. Now, not every seller is looking for money. They might need an extra 3 or 4 months to stay in their house to figure out their lives to get out. Well, if I do my due diligence and talk to the listing agent and find out that Mrs. Smith needs to stay in her house for 4 months, hey, Chase, we're gonna offer her time. You've got time. You don't need to be in this house. Sweet. We just went from the bottom of the pile with our lower, financial offer, but we're giving her exactly what she wants. So now we can potentially win that because we're gifting them what they want, right? So it's a matter of like understanding and talking and literally having conversations with everyone to understand what the gist of the whole thing is. So we get the accepted offer based on the time that you want. Now, one of the things we have to talk with Jillian is typically with mortgaging, you have to assume the property, right, within 60 days of closing. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So most of the time, I would say that. So if you're purchasing a home as a primary residence, there's an assumption there that you're going to actually occupy that home within 60 days as your primary home. And then that you would occupy that home as your primary home for 1 year. Yes. We only care about the first year. We don't care about what happens after that. Right. We're not going to send the mortgage police to your door to try and find out if you're still living there. But that's the assumption of when you're qualifying or you're applying for a loan, are those two things.
Yeah, so
I did hear about that 1 year, especially because I was considering like everybody's calling it house hacking or like the FHA loan, stay there for a year, rent it out. So like that's what I've like heard about also. It's like I need to make sure that wherever I am considering buying a house, I'm going to be there for at least a year. So
just helped someone with a house hack in Hudson.
Yeah.
They bought a 3-family, 5% down. The rentals from the other 2 units that they're not going to live in are going to cover their mortgage payment completely. In fact, they're actually going to make a little bit of a profit every month.
That's exactly what
I'm all proud, like
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I wish I could do.
I'm looking at these people who are, 20 years younger than me thinking,
Yeah.
why didn't I do that?
I know, right? But we bought, so it's good.
Yeah, there you go.
So once you get your accepted offer, this is where the home inspection comes in. So they're going to literally look at everything. So the structural and mechanical. Structural, obviously, like you're looking at basements and crawl spaces to make sure that the house foundation is solid. And then any of the mechanics, your furnace, your boilers, your mini splits, your hot water tanks, all of that stuff plays a part of it because that's where we can use that for negotiation, right? So even though we're paying $250,000 for the property, all these things have issues. Let's talk about getting a credit. Either, hey, Mr. Seller, you're gonna fix it, or what I typically like is I want you to manage the fixing. So let's get a credit, then it's up to you. Because you might say in a year's time, like, I'm gonna sell this place, so I'm not even gonna bother with this. I'll just, wait till the next year. So it's all up to you. But radon, are you familiar with radon? Radon's the breakdown of uranium in the rock that basically causes cancer, like lung cancer, worse than smoking cigarettes. And it's pretty prevalent up here. And I
didn't actually know what it actually was, so that's interesting.
Yeah, so
I said yes, but I didn't.
Yeah, so it seems like a minor thing. It's undetectable. You can't smell it, but it can do major damage to you. And in certain parts of like Ulster County, like up by Saugerties, it tends to be higher than Kingston or here. So it's something you do want to test for. Some people choose not to because they don't think it's necessary. It's a health and safety issue. So I say absolutely.
Wow.
And then water tests, you want to make sure that there's no chloroforms or any bacteria in your water. There are some FHA and other mortgages where there's required this really extensive water test, and the sooner we know that, the better, because that can take like 6 weeks to get the results back, and that could hold up a closing. So like the sooner we know, the sooner we can test, and it's just all about being what's the word I'm looking for? Transparent in communication. Yeah, because like I have a deal that's about to close. He's using a Sunny May, getting $30,000 credit, but 2 weeks ago, they're like, hey, we need this water test. I was like, are you kidding me? We've been under contract for 6 weeks. Now you're asking for this thing that's gonna, oh yeah.
That's awful.
So I was like, come on, who dropped the ball? And I found out who it was, and I'm kind of upset. But we're on track. We're closed next week.
Tell me later. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep. And then septic. So septic systems up here. I grew up in Cleveland where everything you just flushed it down the toilet. Didn't matter. We did out of sight, out of mind. And then I hear about this stuff, and I was like, okay. So I had a 1920s farmhouse in Highland, and it had a cesspool. And we assumed it with the cesspool from the 20s. And before I left and sold that house, I had to replace the septic system. And that was like $20,000. Because that was such an antiquated system. Oh, it was really, really bad.
My grandfather actually where
Yeah.
he has to do that right now, replacing like his whole septic system.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
brutal.
it's pricey, and depending on where it is, like if there's bedrock and they have to pump it up,
Yeah.
that's like an additional $20,000 to $30,000 just to do a pump. So it's crucial to do that testing when you're in the initial offer phase, because then we know, hey, Mr. Seller, this is $20,000. Yes, I understand that you're moving out, but can you do like at least 15? You know, like this is a big deal. So then we get all of that together. I introduce you to one of my attorneys who then is going to receive your contract and will do everything to protect you. Like my first contract that I saw, it says, if me or my significant other dies, I'm still going through with the sale of this house. I'm like, I don't think so, you know. It's like, but it's in there. It's contract language, so you have to make sure, like, hey, if I die, then I can't be forced to obligate to somebody else to purchase this home. So they'll do like those type of protections for you, and there's like so many little nuances in there.
That is random. I've heard of that one.
Yeah. Oh, when you look at these contracts, you're like, what? Oh my God, I'm obligated no matter what. You know, even buried 6 feet down. I'm like, yep, okay, here's my paycheck. So they'll go through all of these, you know, fun things in terms of literally, like I said, from accepted offer to closing is typically 60 days. That's working in conjunction with your, finance group to make sure that it goes through underwriting and that everything, all your documents are being submitted on a timely basis, because everything is, lined up for one thing to happen in succession of another after another. So we go through. We do the final financing and underwriting. Then after that, we go back through the inspections and repairs before the final walkthrough to say, hey, Mr. Seller agreed to do X, Y, and Z. Let's go to the walkthrough, check. Oh, wait, he didn't do this. Now it comes to an interesting conversation at closing because, hey, you said that you were going to do all these things. You didn't do this. So now we're asking for money in escrow or some sort of credit to correct the situation. And it's pretty typical, but some attorneys work really well with doing it, and others roll over and like, I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah,
I'm like,
they
you're
don't
here.
want to fight.
Yeah, and then we have the closing. So you get fully funded and get the house, get the keys, and yeah, the dream happens.
So I feel like, I'm going to keep going here, but I just have to say that it's like a lot of information, and I feel as if I didn't know what was going on, it would feel somewhat, and I'm just assuming, so you know what that means. But anyway, I feel like it's probably a little overwhelming, and but when you're going through the process, if you're working with a professional or professionals, they kind of take your hand and they tell you what the next step is. You're going to have a high-level view of what's happening, but if you're working with someone who knows what they're doing, they're going to take you through it. And it's not as overwhelming because you're doing it on a day-by-day. It's not like, holy crap, I have to know all of this stuff before even... Yeah. You don't. We know it. That's what we're here for, to help you with, if that makes sense.
And when you work with pros, like Julie said, we don't, we ask for a lot of things, but we explain why. Yeah. So it's a learning scenario too, because it's hey, I need this asset, I need this bank statement. Oh, okay, why? Well, because here's what it bridges the gap between, and we need to see if there's a large deposit, so we just make. So you'll learn more about the process, maybe more than you'll ever even want to know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
like I'm never doing this again.
We won't just ask and tell.
Right.
We're going to tell you why. Yeah. And explain things because we all want our buyers at ease because it is such a big financial transaction. It's one of the biggest stress causers in a person's life, and having the right people, leading you through is really important. So
yeah, for sure. And it does seem kind of like right now, especially because I don't have a lot of references to people to refer to. It's like it seems like overwhelming, but also like so out of reach, where it's just like years away or like in some distant land far away from here. But yeah, I mean, I've been told by like my family members and by other people that I've spoken to, I wouldn't get into that, it's a big risk, or like, I don't think that's realistic. But I've been able to kind of deter all of that.
Good for you.
And head into like the knowledge portion of it and just collect as much information as I can. So talking to people such as yourselves is very
yeah, I love that.
Julie's going to show you some stuff that'll kind of dispel that big risk.
Yeah. So I'm mindful of your time because you said you have 2 hours.
Yes.
So what's
I have to be back at work by 1.
Okay, so you got a little bit of time because I want to, because the next part is if you decided to wait.
But wait, you decided to wait?
But wait. Dun, 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 dun. So we're going to look at a little bit. What we did here is we picked a property that's local. So North Park Corners Road up in Newport. When I prepared this presentation last weekend, it was still on the market.
Yeah, fully available?
It's not now.
Nope.
It has a contract on it, right? Or it's
Yeah, it's pending.
Fully accepted offer. Anyway, so I picked this house because it seemed like a decent home for a potential first-time home buyer, and I'm going to go through a little bit of the detail here. So the asking price on this home was $425,000. I used a 3% down idea because that is something that's available to everybody. It's not a specific grant type product. So you can get a 3% down loan it's called a Fannie Mae type loan, a conventional loan. It's not anything you would have to specifically go to a particular agency to get, right? So 3% down, 3% of 425 is 12,750. And I'm going to use closing costs of 10 grand because that's probably about what it would be on a home of this amount. Closing costs are a pile of different things. Bank costs, New York State mortgage tax. You pay a tax to New York State when you get a mortgage. Yeah. You're going to pay for your attorney. You're going to pay for the appraisal of the home, which is the valuation. Anyway, ends up being probably around 10,000 or maybe slightly shy of that, but I'm round numbers here. So your total input into this purchase would be $22,750, right? So what we did was we plugged in what the appreciation of this home would be after 10 years. And I think you can probably see it, but the blue bar here is what the forecasted appreciation will be. And the historical, the purple bar is what the historical appreciation was. And it's actually, so the historical appreciation goes back 10 years, is 4.55. That means that every year the property is potentially expected to appreciate by, or has appreciated by 4.55%. And the forecasted over the next 10 years is that it's expected to appreciate 4.73 per year. So that might sound like, that's, so what, right? So this is how it works though. If we look at it over the 10 years, we've got a $425,000 purchase price in year one, and we're going all the way up. So every year it's going to go up. By year two, you're at $444,000, year three, $462,000, and every year it's appreciating on itself. So even if we're taking the modest one here, which is the purple, at the end of year 10, your $425,000 has changed into a $663,000 value. So you've actually grown your financial portfolio by $228,000. Yeah. So, I think this is really, I'm a bit of a numbers geek. That's probably why I'm a mortgage person. But I love this because it's, because you hear about properties appreciating and. But then when you see it on a graph, it's like, holy crap. Yeah. Like that could be mine. Like this could be worth 600 and change in 10 years. And you'll only be 31 for God's sake. You crying out loud at the end of my grave.
You're right.
So, fascinating stuff. So this is, basically the cumulative appreciation after closing costs. So this is assuming what you're going to appreciate in net worth after your closing costs. So again, 228 and then 239 on the stronger end of things. So, any questions about that?
I really like this also because when I first initially saw it, my mind went to like, okay, if I wait, then because of the appreciation, I'll probably have to pay for the same house $200,000 more to get this property. But I wasn't thinking about like I'm buying it and then gaining like the income through the appreciation.
So I feel
you're right.
Yeah. So it's on dual-edged sword where I would be gaining $200,000, but also if I bought it earlier, I'd be saving $200,000. So it's really like $420,000.
Buckle up, she's got more.
Yeah. Yeah. See, the thing, the interesting part about this is as well, though, is if you were, which it sounds like you might be, positioning yourself for this sort of approach eventually. But if you're deciding to grow your portfolio, your real estate portfolio, and you start with your first home,
Yeah.
And then after 5 or 6 years, you have, let's say you have $140,000 and by year 7 in equity in that home. You know, yeah, then that allows you to take some of that money and then buy your next property. And that's how you grow your portfolio, right? You start borrowing against what you already have and then you buy the next thing.
Exactly. I was seeing like everybody was saying start with that one property after a certain amount of years of appreciation, then you can refinance.
Absolutely.
Buy a new property and then just keep going. And
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I love that. You got whoever's giving you advice. That's good advice.
Access the equity and do things.
Yeah.
And then,
Because if you're niche,
we would buy the house for $425, and so if I was to wait 10 years, it would be $200,000 more. So that's $200,000. But if I bought it, then it also gained the $225. That's $425 right there. That's the price of the house.
Right.
Overall.
Yep.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then what I did was I took the same house and I just looked at the idea of over 2 years, you know, because 10 years for most of us is like, holy crap, that's really a long time.
Yeah.
But 2 years is more of a reining it in a foreseeable future, right?
Yeah.
So the interesting part about growing your equity though, it's not just about the appreciation of the home, which is what we've talked about, the market value, which is this light blue thing right here. It's also about the amount of amortization you're gonna pay down on your loan. So which is this little thing here.
Yeah.
So you're going to see the appreciation in the marketplace, and that can happen by market forces, whatever's happening locally.
Yeah.
My value's growing. But of course, it also can mean I'm going to fix up my house. I've made the bathrooms and the kitchen really lovely. I'm going to grow my value there. But this also, don't forget, you're making a mortgage payment every month, and you're paying a little bit down on that loan every month. So by the end of 2 years, on this same home we talked about before, you're now $48,000 ahead on your $425,000 home.
in 2 years.
2 years. What we also calculated was you did I think you did a comparison in your office about what would that 425 house cost to rent, right? And didn't you say it would be like 2,500?
Yep.
So let's say instead of buying that house, you decided to rent it. So Michael did a rental analysis on that property we were looking at before, $2,500 a month to rent it. So 12 months of $2,500 is $30,000. 2 years of $30,000 is $60,000. So if you're renting that same house, you're $60,000 in the hole. But if you're buying it, you're $48,000 ahead. So there's actually a $100,000 difference because you're not spending $60,000 on the rent. You're actually $48,000. So that's $108,000 to your advantage in 2 years.
So I'm trying to tell my friend he just moved out of his parents' house to move like 500 feet down the road and rents like $1,200 a month. I'm like, just live with your parents for another year and buy a house. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. Yeah. So
Give them our cards.
So this I love because it's just another visual of like, holy crap, like really? I could, you know. So that's
really helped give perspective.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
for sure.
And it's super powerful that way.
So where do I begin? If you decided not to wait, these were the people that you're going to be looking at. And Michael kind of covered this earlier. So we got your lender, that's me, your realtor, that's Michael. HUD certified loan counselor is if you decide you want to do some kind of first-time home buyer program and you have to get first-time home buyer education.
So you did mention the conventional, or you said it was conventional 3%.
Mm-hmm.
From like my limited understanding of it, I thought conventional was like 20%.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I thought that.
Strike the 20% from your brain.
It used that was like the standard I think for everybody for years. So it's like that's what you just put
You know
in
when
here,
that went away?
When?
1956.
Really?
Yes. So the requirement to do, it's funny, right? The 20% down was a requirement up until 1956, and then they decided, you know, nobody's going to be able to buy a home and put all of this kind of money together. We're going to have to come up with a way of lending people more money, less down payment.
So what's the benefit? So what is the benefit, I guess, of the FHA loan then? If I'm getting 3.5% down for the FHA loan versus 3% for the conventional, I guess the interest rate difference.
It's a good question. Actually, it's a very good question. I looked at somebody last night who had average credit. FHA is really strong for somebody who has sort of crappy credit. So for her, she was looking at a home in Ellenville for $397, and her credit was 680. And the difference between an FHA financing interest rate was 6.75, and conventional financing, because her score was so bad, was 7.75. It's a whole 1% difference. I would say conventional financing is generally an easier path to go down, but for a reason like that, where you maybe have average credit, FHA would be a really compelling reason to choose that product. But they can be very specific about the property, and that's so. For example, if this lady I spoke to last night, I want to make an offer on that property, I would call the realtor that she's working with, and I'd say she's using an FHA loan. Would this property pass the FHA requirements? Because you don't want to start someone down a path with a particular mortgage that isn't going to match the house that they're buying.
Yeah, and so for investment properties, for somebody who's buying like a first home, like is there
FHA
is probably in order.
FHA, you have to live there
Yes,
for the first year.
And see, the whole reason why I was planning like my pipe dream was it's got to be FHA loan because that's 3.5%. Because conventional's 20. That's out of my range.
No, conventional's not 20, it's 3.
So now that changes everything because I was thinking that like I would have to live in the property no matter what for the year. And so I guess, all right. So if I do the conventional and I'm able to go down that path, then I guess I wouldn't have to.
Yes. So if you're buying a home on a conventional loan that you're not going to live in, that would be considered an investment property. So that would be 20% down. So that's the difference. Okay. It's 3% down if you're going to live there.
I see.
But the thing about, live
there for a year.
Someone who's your age is like, I'm going to live there for a year, and then I'm going to find another house, and I'm going to rent this one out, and can keep going and grow your portfolio, right?
Yep.
So the other people on your home buying team, so you realize now that looking at all of this stuff we've been showing you is how many people are involved. You're going to need an attorney. That person's going to work with a title company. You're going to need an inspector, an appraiser, and an insurance company.
Takes a village.
Yeah, it does indeed. It does indeed, but we help you with all of those referrals. So, and this is the same stuff that Michael was talking about. The process. Change locks.
Exactly. Well, it's funny. I just think too, like timing wise. So when you first start, it's you're in the cloud. Like, this is super exciting. I've got pre-approved. I'm starting to go shopping. Da 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 da. You might get deterred a couple times because you don't get accepted offer, and then you finally get an accepted offer, and there's a big whirlwind of activity, and then you submit all your docs into the finance person, and they do all the underwriting. But then it's this quiet lull, and you're like, nothing's happening, what's going on? And I'm like, hey Chase, you ready? We just got clear to close, we gotta do the final walkthrough, it's like this bustle of activity, and you're like, holy crap, oh my God, I just got keys to the house. Like, it was just this weird, it's this roller coaster.
It can be a sort of hurry up and wait process.
Yeah, hurry up and so we try to manage that, because there's times like, what's going on? Like, no, everything's doing its natural thing. Like, you're putting it on the stove to simmer, and they're doing their underwriting, and it'll be finished soon, so be patient. Yeah, exactly. So,
oops. There's our QR code if you want to download our information. I'll let you go ahead and do that.
That looks like a house, Gov.
Oh, I know, isn't it cool?
Yeah.
Michael did that, right? I mean,
Max
did
yeah.
that,
Yeah, that was really cool.
And now, it's 5 to 12, we're 5 minutes away from...
Yes.
What are your questions? Or what are your comments? Or what are the things that you feel that you need a little bit more detail on?
So in the beginning, I wrote down, I really only had the one question that was coming in, but I guess I really have a plethora of questions because I'm starting from the bottom and there's all of these possibilities in front of me.
Right.
But the one was the job experience, just because this is I just got this job 6 months ago as an internship actually for my human services class, but then they said that they would pay me for it and then just take me as a job. So I was able to get my foot in the door into the human services field. So I only had the 6 months experience, and the reason I was doing the 6 months experience and the credit and everything was because I know I'm not going to be able to co-sign. I already spoke with my father about it, and he was talking about how it would affect his retirement and how they planned on being in this house for 10 years, and we've been here for our entire lives. So, So they
A little different, yeah.
I expected the first one to be like 3 to 5, and it was 10.
Yeah.
And then the next one was 20 plus. So.
Yeah, because my brother, they were actually, I think it was like 5 years, and they were planning to move when my brother was like 2 or 3, and now my brother's like 24. So I'm still living here. And so they are eager to move out once we get out of the house and done with college and everything. So I already spoke to him, and so co-signing is likely not going to be an option, but maybe personal loans in the future. I don't know.
You got any grandparents or?
Yeah, but
aunts
not
or
in a
uncles?
financially like stable position.
Got it.
So that's why I knew like I need the 2 years job experience. I need the credit history. Like I need these things like to rely on my like own information and experience. So that was good with the college credits being applicable. I'm gonna have to like look more into that for sure, because that would put me at being eligible, I guess, and like once I graduate from in the spring. So long as I have the money and everything else.
That's pretty wild, right?
So that's very good. I'll look more into the grants also. But I guess really it's just like I don't have like many questions, I guess, because I haven't thought that I would be able to even like get into real estate yet. Like I said, like it seemed out of reach, so it's like I put it on hold. Like it's on the back burner. Everything else is taking priority. But now that I know it's like in sight, it's like I can start taking these steps.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I guess like all of my money, I've been keeping my debt like zero. So I did personal loans through my father to pay for college at first. I paid those all off, and now I'm paying for my college by working full time while I go to college full time.
That's great.
So
wow.
Hard
working.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah, it's been killing me. And then when I first started, I was doing like 74 hours too. So I was doing like overtime for like 30 hours because human services field it doesn't pay great. So like the money's in the overtime.
Right.
Which is crazy because I was making like $18.50 slicing bologna at Walmart, and now I'm making like minimum wage, like being responsible for lives and administering medication.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's wild. But yeah, it's a nonprofit, so it comes with territory.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, all of my money right now, I invested, like I said, into the S&P 500 in my Roth IRA for 2023.
Good for you.
And then I paid off all of my college. So right now I'm sitting with like maybe $1,000 just to get me through my summer internship, and that'll be paid too, so I'll get some money there. But all of my money's been going directly into my college, so I don't have a lot to go into. Like that's why I haven't even thought about applying for loans or anything like that, or like applying for a house, because I have zero practically.
I got it.
My money's being distributed.
Right, but you have time, and that's like the biggest value right there, because you're getting the institutional knowledge about what it is that you want, and then you apply time to that. So within a year and a half, 2 years, you're going to be in a spot where you're going to be golden.
So I guess like some questions.
Oh.
Well,
I got a scoop.
All right.
Okay.
My son just surprised me and said, "Hey, I'm on the train.
Oh.
Oh no.
I'm coming to Vigo at 2:25. Here I'm going to pick up like 6 o'clock."
Nope.
Oh wow.
Well, cool. Have fun.
Thank you so much for the information.
Good stuff.
Yes.
We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Vince.
Bye, Vince. Thank you.
So I guess to finish up, I guess just some guidelines or like numbers to shoot for would be nice. I guess if so, say I'm looking for an investment property, or even I guess information on different states or like stuff like that, because I've been in New York all my life, but now I'm going to California for this internship. I'm going to be going into my bachelor's for 2 years now, because I'm going to community college to save money, and then I'll be transferring schools. So I was looking at wherever I was going to be buying the house would have to be where I'm going to college, because I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be nice if I bought a home and now I'm renting out the other 2 units in the property? Wouldn't it be nice if I'm going to college and I have college students and I'm going to be in that area, like they'll likely need to rent,
Yeah.
so that'll create the demand, and they'll likely be reliable tenants versus like anybody else that I might meet. I feel like college students would be
Yeah.
might be more like
Maybe because their parents would be paying their
Right, I was going
rent.
to say there's a guarantor form that goes with that, where mommy and daddy have to pay
Is
if
that
they
right?
can't. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh yeah, that's what I did in the city for every student that came there. So.
Oh, that's
why I
funny.
was considering, especially with the FHA loan, if I knew I had to live there for a year, I was like, all right, so I'm going to have to be at my bachelor at my university for 2 years. So maybe the first year of university I'll dorm, or like, and this is what I was thinking also, is if I have to dorm, room and board is $5,000.
Right, yeah.
Rent is like $1,200 a month if I'm not rooming with like multiple people. All of that money is going to be paid regardless. It's going to be used.
Yep.
So why not put it into a down payment and then rent out the other units? That was like my logic into thinking I'm going into my bachelor's, this would be the time to use it rather than room and board or renting a space. And then I could also have like the demand within that area since I'm going to college. And I have to be there for 2 years anyway, so I would fulfill that 1 year requirement of living in the unit.
So where are you thinking of going to school?
And that's the crux of it all. Is like I love New York. I really like it here, but I've also been here my whole life, and my family is like getting on my nerves at this point. So I like to.
You're about that age.
Yeah, I'd like to have some autonomy and get out on my own. But like I wouldn't mind like the roommates or anything like that. But it's just that I've become a lot more of like a responsible member of my family, like doing like a lot of the chores. My brother also has autism, so I'm helping him with like his college and getting through his associates and like working and like all of those caveats, things like that. My grandparents live next door, and they are both declining physically as well, so that requires a great deal of assistance. So it's just like a lot is falling on myself, and not that I want to remove myself from that situation, and like.
But you do.
No, but you have to chase after what they're chase.
And and I have to put myself first to be able to take care of them in the long term. Like I'm thinking about my parents' retirement and how they're like still kind of like worried about all of that, and I just want to put myself in a situation that I can feel stable and firm, so that I can then use like my extra whatever I have left over to help them. But I'm never going to get to that point where I have extra unless I like put myself first now and start creating that compound effect. But so North Carolina I was looking at just because a lot of people are moving to North Carolina, California, but then the market there is atrocious.
That would be rough.
Yeah, that would be a little insane, particularly around most universities in California.
Exactly, and those are all like the high ticket areas too, like by the university. So I was like, that's ruled out immediately. So really, I was looking at like here, upstate New York. I love the Hudson Valley, but specifically even like a little bit more west into like the Catskills. I go fishing up by Roscoe, by Livingston Manor, Liberty, all the time. That's my family's always talked about getting a vacation home there, or like putting up a cabin by the river or something like that. I know, like you're saying, like I want a cabin by the river with 2 acres. And 250, maybe 20 years ago. So it's like I gotta think of like something more realistic.
But it's crazy. There's still like some of those properties are still out there.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of finding it and
Yeah, and so I'm not becoming
And driving a little bit.
But with that in mind, then I know I already want like a vacation home to be able to tell my brother, hey, you can go up, like bring your family or like whatever, like you can stay there. So in the meantime, being that I want that, I love this area. Like I may be staying in this area. That's why I was thinking maybe like staying within upstate New York. But it all really depends on where I go to college. So that kind of they play off of each other, where it's like, all right, maybe I should get a home in like this area because I want to eventually, so maybe then I'll go to a SUNY school. Or it's like, all right, maybe I don't want to go to a SUNY school and I want to go somewhere else, so now I need to start looking at homes in that area. What would I, like, and that's why everything's kind of up in the air right now in terms of location.
Yeah, I think the way that the market is at the moment, I think, you would be able to get into a property with as little down as possible if you got the seller to pay some of your costs for you. Yeah. That's called a seller's concession. But I think that's probably quite hard to negotiate in the current market, right? Because
I mean, I've had a few, but you have to strategize it, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to go over whatever the concession is just to get net to seller the same as what they want. But I think too, you're talking about saving money with SUNY schools, you'd be saving a ton of money because you're already New York State. Yeah. But I'm wholly endorse you going off and going somewhere else.
Me too.
I grew up in Cleveland. I took off to Chicago. I just moved around because I had to. Like I've got a large family. I could have stayed with family for cheap in Cleveland, but I'd be in Cleveland. Yeah. I don't want to be in Cleveland.
And so like. Growing up when I was going to high school, I always anticipated getting some type of scholarship, but like as I got closer, then I just wasn't taking school seriously. Like I got into like depressed or whatever, like hormone teenage years, whatever you want to call it. But I did play college soccer, and so I wasn't like, or I do play for the community college, and so I was anticipating getting some athletic scholarship, but you need the grades to support that also, and so that's why going to community college, I was hoping to bring my GPA up to at least 3.5, so then I'll be more like
marketable.
No, that's smart.
So I'm hoping that if I was to go out of state, then I would be eligible for some scholarships. If not, then I don't know. Yeah. But like what you were saying, I went to Chile to compete in soccer when I was younger.
Oh, cool.
That experience changed my life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's exactly.
I was 14 years old at the time. We were like in the newspapers, like local soccer team goes to Chile.
Yeah, that's so cool.
We got to go to their high schools, talk to like all.
That's way
like,
cool.
Yeah,
Good for
get
you.
to experience the culture. That and also I visited California recently, and that's how I found out about the internship that I'm going to be applying for. But that experience also has just shown me like how close-minded I've been in terms of like the location and just how vast the world is and like the different opportunities that there are. So I really do want to just like get out of New York, especially since I've been everywhere in New York. Like I've been here my entire life.
You can always say, you know, I used to say, I'll just go for a year.
Yeah,
and then
you
I
can always come
go-
back.
always come
Yeah,
back.
you can always
And
come
then
back.
sometimes you do, and then sometimes you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So
Nope, exactly.
that's
You're-
why with those two experiences, I'm like, maybe I do want to just explore like a different area for a little bit.
Totally.
And especially with college, like I feel like that's like this is a time that I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to introduce myself to different perspectives and try to develop myself the most I can as a person. So I need that, like those varying perspectives. I can't be around the same people with the same limited mindsets and. So
Nope, that's
Good
so
for
good.
you.
That's so good.
Yeah.
You're gonna be great.
Yeah, you're gonna be
Yeah,
fine.
you're gonna be just great.
So let's say, I guess, so that I can get some lunch before I head back to work.
Yeah.
In this, let's say I wanted to get a multifamily property, 3-unit, stay in one, located within 5 miles of a university, maybe 50. I don't know. It doesn't have to be that close, I suppose. But I would assume that the cost would increase being closer to the university. So a multifamily unit, preferably 3 units. Close to a university in New York, what would I need for the down payment? What numbers would I be looking at? What's the average cost for a home like that? Or is there a specific case that you can think of that you've worked
I
with?
mean, I think it all depends. Say, for example, if you were looking here in New Paltz
Yes.
taxes are insane.
Yeah.
So you to buy a multifamily here, the tax is already considerably.
Versus Albany, yeah.
Right, go to Albany, or even like if you go to SUNY Ulster, like you can get something cheaper out
Yeah.
there, you know, like it all depends on where you're looking at. And then if you're like, okay, I'm gonna go by Columbia University, all right, well, that's a whole other entry point into that, you know? So it all depends, like Rochester, Buffalo, those are all different markets altogether, but with a little research can be easily determine what you need.
Okay, so,
So if you were, let's use a simple example. So if you're buying a multifamily, you're going to need 5% down. You can't do a 3.5 on a multifamily. So you're going to need 5% down. If it was a $400,000 house, 5% would be 20 grand.
okay.
$300,000 house, 5% would be 15,000. You know, there are ways to get, so that's your portion of your down payment. And there are ways to get the closing costs paid for by the seller, which Michael was just talking about. That's more difficult in a market that's really tight. So
Relatively 10,000.
yeah, so if you're shopping in a really busy market where there are a lot of interested buyers, the seller might not want to pay your costs. I mean, it's worth talking about
Yeah.
with your real estate agent, but you know.
Absolutely.
Especially if they have options, others might not.
Right, but then it's all about how you structure your offer as well. So, but the minimum amount I think you'd want to come up with is at least the 5%, if not more.
And so that's for the FHA loan, or is that?
Yep.
Okay, so that's good information also, because I thought it was 3.5.
No,
regardless.
3.5 you can do on a single family,
Right,
but
but
if you're looking at a
multi-families.
multi-unit, it's 5%.
And so then with a conventional loan, if I was doing with investment, it's 20%.
If it is 20% as an investment, meaning you're not going to live there,
But if I live there for a year and
you can do 5%.
then I could do
Same
5%
as
also.
FHA, yeah.
Okay, FHA.
And a crazy thing to consider too is a lot of here, let's say you give a single family home, but it has like 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Each room is being rented out for students, right? So maybe somebody lives there, but the rest is all students. So you're getting like $800 per room.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're paying for internet, Wi-Fi, garbage, recycling, snow removal, lawn care. That's
Yes.
it. And the rest is just all being paid. So
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily have to be a full multifamily. It could be a single family home with multiple rooms that you're going to then rent out.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
But then, like in that situation, then I'd be strictly relying on the ability to get college students to then rent out those rooms. And if I'm unable to do that, I can't like legally rent out to a family or anything like that, or like to somebody else if it's a room, or would I be able to?
I think after the first year you should be able to. Then like you would not be living there, but you could rent it out to.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
now-
yeah, yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
you would
right.
just change the way the math problem
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that okay. So
Yeah.
that helps also.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at roughly $30,000 that I need to have.
I mean, I think that's fair, but if you know, it's going to depend where you go to school and what the prices of the houses are.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so if you went to North Carolina or you went here upstate, way upstate, you could probably buy homes for much less, right?
I
So
mean,
you wouldn't
outside
need
of
as much
Albany,
money.
Yeah.
So I think that's really going to be your driving factor, is where you're considering going to school. And then you would look at the cost of the houses around that area, look online and see, you know, what 3 family houses are going for. And then you're going to be able to determine how much money you're going to need to save up.
Yeah.
The other thing, again, remember you can draw from your retirement account. You can get gift funds if that's an opportunity for you. I don't think you said it was, but you know, there are other ways to get the money aside from just like hard work.
Yeah.
Right.
I've heard of like even like reaching out to other like realtors, even like realtors in the area, or like investors that like are looking, like I guess not looking for anybody, but if they're willing to mentor somebody that's looking to get into investing long term, or like buying multiple properties over time. And I've heard of instances in which people are willing to do private money lending, and like I probably wouldn't withdraw anything from my retirement account because I know like there's the like they take the percentage
Penalty, yeah.
459. So and like
Although, if you do that before to buy your first home, if you withdraw money,
yes, there is
that you can
Yeah.
do up to 10,000 without a penalty.
I totally forgot about
Yeah.
that.
Which
Yeah.
I did do. For
Did you know
mine.
that?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
But then I also have to weigh the variable of like how is that 10,000 going to look after 40 years of compounding interest?
Yep.
And so, yeah.
Well, you could also look at how's it going to look with the house you bought and all of
Yeah,
the
yeah, exactly.
appreciation in value. I would look at all of the options.
Yeah. There's just so much going into this. That's why, like you said, it can be very overwhelming. And
Yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
so far out of my range. I'm not.
It's,
but
but
good
it's
to have
not.
this
You're
conversation,
learning.
you know?
You're so far ahead of the game.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, 22-year-olds said, no,
Yeah.
Yeah.
no. My niece is like, what am I wearing tomorrow? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my friends are in that same position.
Yeah.
That's why I'm just trying to put myself in a position where I'm
No,
talking
it's
to
really good.
people that
Good for you.
know more than myself.
Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, shit. You get the house and then have your friends come in and
Yeah,
rent
come
and
rent-
pay for your mortgage.
Yeah, literally. And
exactly.
that's like what you were saying, that one like instance of the family, or like that person getting the multifamily unit, and the two other units are paying for the
Yeah.
mortgage plus extra, so
Yeah.
now that's going into their pocket. Like
I love
that's
it.
Exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, totally.
So that would be
I love it.
So that was in this area.
In Hudson.
In Hudson.
Yeah.
And so, is there any caveats to a purchase like that would be different to, say, if I was just to be a first home buyer, just getting a single? It's the same process.
No, I mean the only thing is if you are using some of the potential rent, you can use the potential rent to help you qualify.
Yes.
Yep. So if the rent on a unit is 2,000, we can allot 75% of that 2,000 to help you qualify. So in that example, that would be if you're going to rent one of the units for $2,000, we would allot 1,500 of that, or 75%, to help you qualify. So if you have that goal of purchasing, but you're not making enough money, you can rely on the potential rental income to help you qualify.
That is very good to hear. Okay,
Yeah.
so
And it has to be provable, or it has to be like historic. How does that work?
With some mortgage programs, you actually have to get a lease up front, which can be difficult.
Yep.
But in
Especially if
some
you don't
other
own it yet.
programs, you get the appraiser to clarify on the appraisal what the
Okay.
market rent
Makes
is.
sense. Yeah.
And then you go from there. These particular people in Hudson, they didn't need the help, but
yeah, that's great to hear. Also, that was actually one of my questions that I was like looking to come into here with, because I heard that you can use expected rent income towards your.
you can help it to qualify, yeah? You
Yes.
sure can.
Okay. Because like I was saying, like in this field that I'm working, there is no money, and so it's like I have to work overtime just to like get my college tuition payments in.
Right.
And so to buy a house, forget about it. Like it's like maybe like 26,500 or 26,500 a year. It's like
Ooh, ouch, yeah.
yeah, because it's like $16 an hour, and it's like I was saying, the job responsibilities are incredible.
Yeah,
I can work
that's
at McDonald's and make the same thing for flipping burgers, and now
Yeah.
you're telling me that I have to be responsible for this person's life, and
Yeah.
if I don't care for them properly, I can be arrested for the
yeah,
like.
That's
negligence.
insane.
isn't it? And that's our social healthcare system.
Yeah, and it's wild. But that's why I'm looking into other like fields also, because I've seen like the social work, like my expected like salary is likely to be around 65,000, which is like all right and everything. But then also like my goal, which is why I'm looking at the investment properties for additional like side income. My goal is to hit 6 figures. That's where I feel like I'd be comfortable, and so that's why I'm like now looking into like nursing.
You'll be retired by the time you're 30, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, the way you're answering these questions, like,
See,
yep,
I'm hoping, but like,
yeah,
but that's
You'll find your way there.
Yeah.
You will. You'll find your path through it. And
That's
you
how I
know,
heard real estate was a path for a lot of people.
yeah.
yeah. So you were talking about investments. There's a bunch of Facebook group for local Hudson Valley investors.
Okay.
They kind of meet up. They try to meet up at least once a month, and it's kind of fascinating because I'm in it just strictly as like
That's interesting.
an
I didn't know
observer, and just like some of the questions that are thrown out there. But they do meet up. I think it was one in Beacon, one in Wappinger Falls. They get together and basically talk like, hey, what was your issue? Who did you use? What about property service, like property management companies, like, paying them 10% of your cost to take care of your building while you have, and it's like, you got to just, it's number crunching, but to talk to people who are living it is really good.
Exactly. That's why I was looking like. That's why I'm so grateful to have like this opportunity to come to this class today, because I really have had nobody to talk to other than the one. Like I was doing the landscaping job, just doing like pea gravel. Like I did no landscaping either, but
Right.
she's my dog breeder also. So she was like, hey, like I need a pea gravel sidewalk. You want to put it in? I was like, okay, and then I did it. And so, but she was a broker, and so I got to ask her some
What's her
questions.
name?
Cindy. Oh my God. Oh, Cindy O'Brien. She works.
Oh,
for-
she's a Walkill Valley
Yes,
Savings.
Walkill,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
She does
Oh
what
yeah,
I
I
do.
know Cindy. Okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
She does what I do.
Yeah,
That's
she-
funny.
Yeah, she's great. She's my dog breeder, and then I also.
That's
did her
funny. I didn't know
sidewalk.
she bred dogs. That's really
Yes.
So
funny.
funny.
Yeah, English setters.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so we go to some dog shows every now and then too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and if she becomes a champion breed or whatever, then the puppies become worth like $1,000 more. So that's
Wow.
Ah, check it out.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I guess what are some things that like that I could start acting on now? Like I got my credit card. I'm just getting gas every month. Like I'll fill up my tank with the credit card. I'll pay it off at the end of the month. I'll leave like the tiny bit of.
Yeah, I think it's, Vince said pay your credit card off. I actually like to leave a balance on there because I think that shows that you can tolerate having debt. You can
Yes.
tolerate having even if it's a low balance. I don't think that's a bad thing to leave that on there.
Well, no, and I forgot to use my Discover for a while, and after 2 years of no balance, not even using it once, they just automatically closed it. So then it changed my debt to income
Ah,
ratio.
check
So
it out.
that all went away. I was like, oh, I did not mean that for it to happen at all because I just didn't use it.
Yeah.
So
So and that's why I've been trying to like use it also, because like I was like, what do I use it? And my dad was like, just buy gas.
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah.
the way to go. Just like use it for gas.
Yeah.
Like, things that you're already going to be doing
Uh-huh.
regardless, and then.
and if there's points on it too, like if you can get airline points and that's really good.
Yeah, we get. I think for this one, because I wasn't like eligible for any like good ones yet. But this one I get like a 3% cash back for restaurants and something else.
Yeah.
And I don't even really know how how that works. Like, how do I get that cash back or whatever? Because every time now that I'm paying off the credit card, it's saying, "Do you want to use the cash back?" And I'm like, I would say no.
No, yeah, let it build up. Yeah.
But so how do I get that cash back?
So then at one point in time, instead of you paying the $50 for the month, you'll be like, all right, I'm just going to take that $50 and apply it. So
Okay.
it's just an automatic credit without you giving that money back to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because I wasn't sure if they were gonna like deposit into my bank account or anything like that.
No, I mean, I think some you can, but yeah, it just depends on what they are.
Yeah, because I don't need that one. I would rather. just-
No, let it accrue, and then all of a sudden you're like, sweet, I need a new computer.
Yeah.
Pay it all off.
It's like, that's what I got Venmo some cash for like a landscaping job, and I forgot about it, and then like months later I'm like, I have $250.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
That's
But,
cool.
So I'm building my credit. I'm about to do a 6-month personal loan through my bank, Hudson Valley Credit Union.
Hmm.
They have like a 6-month and 12-month.
What's that for? For college?
I don't need it. It's just to build the credit. I don't need the money, but it's either $600 or $1,200 for a 6-month or a 12-month. And I guess I paid them back the $600 over the 6 months. But I asked the person at the bank when I was setting up my savings account. I was like, "Is there any way that I can build credit right now, other than just setting up this credit card?" And they're like, "Well, if you do like the short-term loan of 6 months and then you pay it off, then that can help you build credit also." So that's like something I'm looking at starting like now. I guess.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Are there any other ways that I can build credit that, I don't have any major.
Do you need a new car?
No, well, yeah, actually, because it's from 2000. I got a hand-me-down from my grandfather from like 2006.
So that would be a good way to, because the more, I don't want to say the larger the debt on your credit report, the more impact it will have. But certainly when you get a mortgage, that's the most important thing on your credit report. But if you have an auto loan, that's usually a decent sized number.
Okay.
That would be helpful when you're ready to get a new car, is to get a loan. That would certainly help you.
Yeah, I'm gonna run this till the wheels fall off. But once they do, then I'm probably be going for a used car. And
Right.
So would they even provide a loan for like a $7,000 used?
I think they do,
Oh
right?
yeah, hell yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I think
most
you
of
can
these
get that.
most of these places will, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right.
Yep.
Because I'm not looking at getting like a.
No,
20.
you're smart.
Yeah.
No, you can-
But then student loans too is another way.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I was wondering if because the personal financing through my father has no bearing.
No impact.
Yeah.
Nah.
And so that's why I was like, I probably should have just got the loan and paid you back. I should have just paid the bank back.
Right.
But you live and you learn. So.
I think what you're doing is fine. I think
Yeah.
you'll find different ways to build your credit. You don't have to do it with a student loan.
Okay. And that's why I was hesitant even for the car loan, because I was like, I don't want to commit to that, and maybe if it's just
Well, imagine how
5,000.
you're going to feel when you get a mortgage then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 30 years.
Time to jump in,
Yeah.
you know?
But it's funny, it's hardly every 30 years, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Seriously, right.
True.
Just gonna.
So 6 month, 12-month personal loan, I'll do that, and then.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
So credit, that's the one thing. Is there anything else I can do in the meantime to prepare myself for?
I think that will be good to get you through the next few months, right? What do you think, Michael?
I think so too. Otherwise, you're going to overwhelm yourself, and you're not going to do anything. Just live and do you. Just because you have to. This is the time for you to enjoy your 20s, but you're being smart and you're planning. For your future pacing yourself. That's huge, because literally most kids in your age bracket are not doing this. Kids, I say. I say that because I've got nieces and nephews that are your age, so.
I think we should leave the two out.
I think
have
they
to
would-
help us.
Yeah, you got to go eat lunch.
We've got to go get lunch.
All right.
Thank you so
I'll
much,
get this
Chase.
real-
What
We
a
should
pleasure to meet you.
we should grab your email so we can send you this right
Yes.
here.
Yes.
What's-
Let's do that, yep.
The video too, if
Yeah.
possible.
Yep.
What's Chase's last name?
GODWIN.
What's the email?
Chase, and then my last name,
GODWI.
99
Yep.
@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And then, do you need my phone number?
Yeah, I'll take your phone.
845
Yep.
803
803.
5333.
Awesome. Pleasure.
Alright.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
going to
thank
crush
you
it, my
so
friend.
much.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes.
Share both of your.
Yeah, my card, Jillian's card.
Perfect.
Yes.
Got the-
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you for